Well, Leon Schlesinger had been a soft shoe dancer and a number of other things, and he formed an outfit, which I guess is still in existence, called Pacific Art and Title, and he made titles for motion pictures. And anyway, he decided that he would finance a cartoon studio because he saw there was money there. He wasn't much of a he wasn't exactly the most brilliant or kindliest person, but he liked to make a profit. So he formed a studio and hired Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. I was curious about those two guys because they worked together in Kansas City, and they apparently never realized when they put their two names together, Harman and Ising, it'd be harmonizing. And that's funny, isn't it? So obvious. So it seemed like a logical name to use on cartoons. So Harmonizing and Leon Schlesinger got married, and they made Bosco and some other things. Good animation. That's been Fritz Freeling was one of their animators, and a number of guys were, and names that wouldn't be particularly meaningful today. Ben Clopton, who had been a cowboy, and but he could draw, and a number of other people came from different walks of life. Ken Harris, who worked for me, of course, he didn't work in harmonizing, but he worked for me, and he had been a racetrack driver, and he happened to draw too. And Ben Washam, who worked for me, was a partner with Bob Wyant when they formed Bob's Big Boy.
Yeah.
And that first drawing was done by Benny Washam.
Yeah.
And he hated it because years later, Bob Wyant insisted he uses the same drawing. But Benny said, God, it's a terrible drawing, you know. And I've advanced a lot since then, and here this thing's facing me all over the country. The way Leon should have learned, but didn't even realize what was happening, was that if you have a very talented person, it will attract other people who are talented, who want to work with him. To this day, most people don't seem to realize that. He had a great cornerstone. In the beginning of that, it was Fritz Freeling. And then Leon, Tex Avery, who's been working at Universal with Walt Lance, came over to Leon and said he'd been directing films at, at Universal. Well, Leon was too lazy to even call up and ask if he'd done it. He'd never directed a picture in his life. You think that's the first thing you do is call up Walt Lance and says, are you willing to let go with this director? Well, I guess Leon figured if he asked him why they wouldn't let him, and he would be able to hang on to it. Hang on to him, you know, he'd be willing to steal Tex, in other words. So Tex came over without ever having directed a picture, and Leon assigned Bob Clampett and me and Bo Cannon to go to work for him as animators. Now, there was no story department. We were the story department. I mean, we get an idea like Porky the Wrestler or something like that, and anything, the Wild West stuff. And we realized at the time, after a while, with Leon, that Leon had hired a corker in Tex. But we had a lot of fun. It was all one, you know, and we in this place we worked in by the remarkable name of Termite Terrace. That's what we gave it the name. It was an old bungalow that went back to about 1915 in the middle of the old Warner lot on Sunset Boulevard. And it was called Termite Terrace. Well, and we had pet spiders too and things like that. It was so beat up you couldn't believe it. And we had a couple of mice and many that lived there. And a couple of years later, when they built a new building for us, we took 2 or 3 spiders with us because we figured we wouldn't be at home in a new building without some ingrown spiders.